Well, let's do a little garden update. It's been a few days. I don't think we really covered all these. Going to give it pretty much it's the end of the year. Man, you can just see some of these colors on it. They're absolutely amazing. I mean, they're neon in color. I don't know if this camera really does it justice. But we're out here picking off flower heads for next year's. A little bit of whatever. We paid for seeds one time. But we need a lot more pollinators. Now this big one here, I was really bragging on, just how beautiful it really was. Now the rain could have done it to it and made it lay over, but it's top heavy. It's got a lot of tops, a lot of flowers. Thoughts on these plants? See how they just kind of lay over? So if you want something to where it's going to be right up against something and making it the way it looked, really nice once it gets all these tops. And let me tell you, they're pretty. They got vibrant colors. Look how neon that is. I don't know, the weather's just starting to affect them. They're not taking that cooler weather too good. This is how we do it though. We collect them and then we cut all the pedestals off. Or you can actually let them dry up, given this one for example. And when they get like that, you just take them. You'll break this apart and store the seeds for next year. Oh, we got plenty of starts. Right there, you can see the seeds. As they dry out, they naturally do that. Now, there's a couple different types. You got these with the pedestals. Some of them are kind of like rounded. But there's two different kinds. You got these dark green ones. And then you got these other ones. So, man, they look pretty for what I had. I'll be honest. Compared on what I had, yeah. But you can see that cold weather, what it kind of does to them. Or they just, they peter out. Let's be honest. Now, if I was to do these next year, what we need to do is kind of put them up under the porch a little bit further. That way when they lay down, they get too big. They can grow out and kind of fill up under the porch. Make it look good, So we're going to try a few more plants. Hey, Sissy. You want to be on camera? Yeah, that baby is. There's Sissy. There's Tank. Oh, oh, yeah, I know. Look at her. She's gentle. And like these, even though I didn't give them no water, no fertilizer, they kind of did the same thing. Now, the package did say they would do that. And that's the shorter green ones. You can see we're getting plenty of bud sites. Look at her tobacco. Picked a few leaves off. Boy, I tell you, them leaves are still really super sticky. But man, they're really starting to get some size now. Don't want to give up on them. I've gave up on any kind of seeds. So, even where I broke them off, they're still trying to grow, So I was thinking maybe lack of fertilizer. It might be that once the leaves get yellow, almost whitish in color, they're done. They're sticky. So that's what you're looking for in tobacco, good sticky tobacco. Even though those suffered through the year, I've pulled some tops off of these now. They look really great. And then you got a couple different types. See, you got the little round ones. And then you got these other ones. Now but when the flowers come on, they stay on for a long, long time. And you got some of these. A little bit slower, a little bit different style, whatever. That was the 2 seed packets of marigolds we seen. All these little plants, they're pretty much getting done. They keep, like, the top fell out of a few of them now. The lowers are coming back on. The cooler weather. We got some of the bigger tomatoes. Right there's like 1 or 2. It's getting hard to finish these. They're getting a little more pollination later here in the year. So that looks good. The bumblebees are coming in. But you can see a lot of these other bigger tomatoes, you know, they have problems getting to a good size. I've only got a few of them here and there. They're starting to come on now. I've had a few of them. I think I got like 2 of them. But man, look at this one. I mean, it's just kind of taking over. I don't know if you can really see that really good. But some of these tomatoes, you know, maybe they got a little, I'm thinking beefsteak on these. Look at that bad boy. Now that's a slicing tomato. Now if it tastes good, that's to be determined. Those are slicing tomatoes. That's what I really wanted. Didn't get many of those yet. You know, you can see the plants are starting to look like trash. I mean, these marigolds that I planted in the first part of the year, you can see these flower heads stay on for months. Good example of what they will naturally do right there. It'll lose all that. It'll drop these leaves. But we're collecting flower heads. If anybody wanted some, they wanted to pay for an envelope or some shipping or something, I'd throw you a couple seed heads in an envelope. Or, you know, if you wanted to get a package, like one of those bubble packages. Got to keep an eye on these dogs. They've caused me some problems here. Sissy! Hey, come on now. Get down here. There he is. They're chasing after a little something right there. But these little ones over here, even though like the later starts, perfect example of what they naturally do right here. You know, that's ready for next year. But even, you know, the later I started them, you know, they're smaller. And that's kind of what I'm after. You know, I really like how they're much smaller. But after we picked them out, you know, after we picked those out, once, you know, we let the weeds protect them a little bit, and I had flowers going. You know, we still got some flowers, some later flowers coming on. I guess these will grow any old time you're ready for them. Now, they looked a little sickly when we put them out. You know, they were something like that, something like that. They wasn't nothing. I did fertilize these one time, a little bit. Grow and blooming fertilizer. Now, that you can tell that those got they're taking that blooming fertilizer good. But it takes like 2 or 3 months for it to really make a difference. You know, it takes time for the microbes to break down the fertilizer. It's not like a liquid chemical fertilizer. It's a organic fertilizer. And most of it was for the tomato, you know, as a tomato grow and bloom and had calcium and magnesium in it. So, tomatoes really need a lot of calcium and magnesium to do good. So they say. You know, I say put it in the dirt and see what you get, you know. Be honest. But right here, look at all these tomatoes. You know, they say you got to stake them up, whatever. They're really starting to finish out. Got plenty of good tomatoes. The little ones did really, really good. These were walked on, stepped on. Look at all the blooms. I think they do a little better with less attention. Still putting out lots of blooms. Still got a lot of little small tomatoes. Now these are a little more into the shade, you know. The way the sun comes up, it's over here, and as it comes through here, you know, these get like evening sun, and they don't really get no sun till like 2 o'clock. So it's only afternoon sun. You only need 6 hours. And look at all these. You know, they're starting to get finished up. A lot of these are starting to finish up. Look, there's little Easter eggs all over if you really want to dig. Right here's that Better Boy or beefsteak. You know, it's just a slow growing plant. You know, I don't know what's going on with it, but the beefsteaks, that's a big tomato, so it might take it a little bit longer. But looks good. And we're trying to work on the truck. Now, it started to get dark about 7 o'clock in the afternoon. So 7:30, somewhere in there, you know, you're done. So, you know, now that it's 5 o'clock, I mean, the sun's almost out of here. You know what I mean? But that's our little update. I don't know if we'll do many more videos on the tomatoes or whatever. But if a person was to plant those back, maybe the way those growed, I mean, understandably, they lay over because they're heavy. And they probably want to grow straight up. But as, you know, the rain and the weather comes in, they're going to want to lay over. And if you plant them early, they're going to lay over. Like, look how long these are. You know, those are guesstimation. Oh, they're eye level. So you'd take the height of that one if you planted them first part of the season. You know, that's 5 feet, almost 6 feet long from the stalks on the bottom to the top. They're almost eye level. I'm like 5'8", 5'9". So if you was to plant them up under the porch or something like that, to where you could just kind of lay on the ground and it would fill it out all through the bottom, it would look good. I like how these look, but given the circumstances, you know, there's really only a couple now that are catching my eye. This one, for example, still really short, still really nice, didn't lay over. Could have been the dogs, whatever, could have been anything. It broke it down, split it up. The tops are too heavy. The water's pushed those over. They look beautiful. The water pushed it over. We will have some other projects coming up. I cut the top out of that one, looks decent. Tobacco. Now, if they would have looked like that and got a leaf as long as your leg or something, you know, I think that's about the max size on the tobacco leaves. Look good, laid over. Once it got a lot of tops on it, laid over. That one right there is catching my eye a lot more now, but it had that little bit of spray damage. I like the way that looks. This one looks really nice. That's a picture perfect now. This one coming in a lot better. It looks a lot better. It looked a little scabbed. These are laying over. Now the dogs come through here, there. You know, the dogs have seniority over anything. They got flowers on them still. It ain't gonna hurt them if they lay over. You know, the stalks get long. They say you would have to prop them up. I really don't want to do that. I like how those little ones are. You know, they're probably about a foot tall. Got a bunch of tops on them. Now, if they looked like some of these on the corners, which I started those later, you know, kind of seeing progressively you could plant them. You know, if you wanted to cull a few of them as the other ones are coming in, it would work. You know, if you're going to take the time to put them in some potting soil and in the greenhouse and then out, yeah. Right here, these, see how these just kind of laid over? Now, that once they grow tall, but when they get so big, they try to lay over. You know, still got a little bit of tobacco. Pick those leaves off of that one. It's trying to do its thing. Now, with some of that tobacco, you can pick leaves. It'll come on all season long. So, we got some other projects coming. I know I basically talked to myself, but we got 100 people that kind of watch. So, appreciate you guys. It just lets me know where everybody's still, you know, kind of supporting each other. I don't make no money off this, whatever. We got to do the diesel heater. We might go one more round on that. I've got my temporary washer right here, so we can get another spin dry washer. I like that washer, really. I mean, it's a clunker, it thumps and whatever. Now, we did do a little stuff here to keep the grass from growing up next to us so bad. You know, we're in and out of here, not all the time, but if we need in here, you know, I don't want to be in the grass, so to say. Talked to the neighbor about maybe doing some, he talked to me and said he wanted to do some more boards for the porch. Whatever. I do have some lumber over here. I was going to try to put me a little building together so we can have some vegetables, maybe dry some tobacco, barn style, and you know, whatever comes off the garden needed to dry out, just like those flower pedestals to keep the bugs out of the house. You know, honestly, you just need a place to where they can just lay them out on a rack, let them dry, whatever. Same thing with green beans. I'm going to try bushel beans next year. If you got corn, stuff like that, you know, it's got to dry. You got to stick it out, let it dry completely up before you try to store it. Unless you're going to can it. Now, still got a mess of wood. You know, I've had several people stopping in here. You know, Samuel Dwayne Howard lives at 88 Piney Point. If you want to talk to him, he's got a big house. You can't mess it. He's got a personality. You've seen him in some of my videos. Great guy. If you want something, you need to talk to him. I don't want to be aggravated. I've lived here for 7-8 years. No problems. It's getting to be winter time. People need wood. I understand. I'd like to cut some of that up. My intentions on putting this little building together, I want to have a small stove, maybe homemade. You know me, I'm a homemade kind of guy. I've seen a couple that were like $100, but I want something I can build a little more fire in. That way, if we do have a bad winter, if we don't have no power, you know, there one year, it was 5, almost 8 weeks. No power, no water, no nothing. Well, we had water. But if your water was to bust or something, you couldn't even get out. I mean, there was a good bit of time to where you couldn't even do nothing. You couldn't get on propane. You couldn't get on gas. You couldn't get on diesel. Now, if you had some stuff saved up, and I had diesel saved up with kerosene, but, you know, I'm not going to put kerosene in something unless I'm using it for heat. Let's be honest. So, I like kerosene, but wow, the price on that stuff when it hits seasonal, it can be up to $6 to $8. You do the math. If you was to go to Walmart or something and get a 5-gallon bucket of like the pure kerosene that don't smoke, like for a kerosene heater or something, it's a lot. I know we just kind of gab on here and show projects as what we've done for a little bit through the day or whatever. I would love to film. I would love to edit. I've finally got my laptop that's fixed, but to make it work and get it edited, I've been trying to do some editing. I've did some, you know, just kooky, goofy, whatever types of things with the little bit of available software for the phone, but it takes storage. So if I edit something, I clip it, I use the magic eraser and then kind of add to it and then have it animated. It's a lot, you know, it takes a long time. It took like 10 minutes just to make just a little simple something. And then, you know, the storage that it uses for the SD card, you know, we all know how much the 1 terabyte SD cards can be. Let's not talk about like a 15 terabyte or, you know, a 50 terabyte storage to where you can just keep all your stuff in a, you know, a mobile SD card, if you will. I don't know the terminology. Don't, you know, make fun of me, that's fine. I'm like, yeah, buddy, I don't know. You know, educate me, just don't talk down to me kind of thing. But, yeah, that's kind of where we're at, you know. This is just for fun. You know, we're just having a good time on here, hopefully. You know, I try not to get too serious, you know. If somebody asks me a question, I do kind of drift off into, well, you know, that's technically, from my opinion, what's happening. Is it, you know, actual whatever? You know, talk to several people. I always say get a second opinion. Get 10, you know what I mean? Don't take one person's word, and then if it's factual and, you know, everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay, that's what it is then. Now, it's coming to a season. The season's coming to an end. We're at a close. You know, it's getting ready to roll into October here. Once it starts hitting October, on the flowers, the vegetables, whatever. Now, you could do cold season crops. You could do brackises. You know, it's cauliflowers, Brussels sprouts, all kinds of that, onions and whatever. You know, sometimes lettuce, you know, you'd have to put those lettuce seeds almost in the fridge to make them work. My fridge, it's a hand-me-down, so it kind of freezes the stuff almost, and I try to turn it down. Sometimes it gets too hot, sometimes it gets too cold. There's no in-between. I'm grateful for what I have. So, you know, it's cheap. I'm cheap, whatever. You know, I could eventually get something brand spanking new. But, you know, really do need a remodel more than that. You know, if you was to get all sheetrock and go through and rewire everything. That way you could have all your dedicated circuits and whatever. They just had a little old simple 100 amp box. I put a 100 amp box in, but I put a new one in it. And I put a new outside 200 amp box. Conduit, wire, all that. Had to get 2 ground poles, whatever. And then we dozed all this and, you know, slicked it up, put gravel down. Into the driveway needs fixed, you know. Sam said he was going to do all that or whatever, so, you know, give him plenty of time. Or whatever. I could have got Possum. Possum offered to slick it up. He's like, man, it needs slicked up again. I was like, I know, but we're just going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if they're truly finished yet because they said we'd come back through with weed killer and all that. So they might be going through here and spraying all this too still. That's why I wanted to do some cold season crops. You know, I like Brussels sprouts. I like cauliflower. I like broccoli. I like all it. But I want to have, you know, to where it's not going to be to where you can't put it up or something. That's why we're going to have to do a little small building. Some, you know, if you can cut it up, sun dry it, or get a dehydrator and have jars to where you can put stuff up. And, you know, just in case, you know, like I say, 5 weeks, you know, like I say, I'd like to have like 3-4 truckloads or more than that of some wood cut up, split up, you know, ready for if I need it. Maybe a little bit of coal, just in case we get where, you know, the power would go up. You know, they're talking about a bad winter. I've heard that several times. And then, you know, whatever. I just want to have a place to where I could lay like a sleeping cot down with a sleeping bag. You could bring the dogs in there with you, baby. Yeah, just they could sleep in the floor, make a doggy door, and have a spot to where you could have some dry storage for some whatever, or, you know, as it comes off the garden, even potatoes. Like potatoes, if you grow potatoes, you gotta let them dry out. Garlic, you gotta let it dry out. Onions, you gotta let them dry out. You gotta hang them up. You gotta let them do what they need to do. They can't just go from being in the ground, which is moist, and they're growing, but then they have to be dry storage or they rot. You know, they'll turn to mush. So a little bit of something to keep us warm, just in case. You know, maybe a place to hang out with a sofa in it and play on the phone. We can maybe do some live streams from there. Now that would be cool. Checking, make sure it's still running. I ain't talking to myself. A dry storage and, you know, a place to just chill and maybe talk about whatever. Do some TikToking maybe get on there and do some lives and just kind of chill and hang out and whatever. Now this building, it would be a lot. We can use just a shanty little scab together. It don't matter about the little building. It's just a, you know, a spot to where we can put something in a jar and, you know, it's not going to ruin till springtime, or, you know, it's going to stay good till we use it up and we can figure out what we're going to use of it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? When you grow a crop or whatever, you kind of eat through that. Now when I stayed out there with my great aunt, you know, they put up a whole bunch more than they needed, because some years you just don't get nothing. Like last year with the bees and stuff, and the bugs, mainly it was wasps and yellow jackets. You was having problems. They was just everywhere. You couldn't go fishing. I didn't get to go fishing because of the stones this year, and it could have been the stones last year. Let's be honest. You know, just not feeling up. Just, you know, back ache all the time. You know, that's part of it. But, you know, I've had a bad car wreck. I've still got a lifetime of care. So, you know, whatever that's worth, I guess is better than being taken care of the state, what they told me. I did look it up or whatever. But we've been cutting grass. We've been doing whatever. Now, a lot of this, you see that heavy vegetation, those are seeded flowers. You know, I've put out a lot of stuff. Didn't do real good this year. We're hoping for a better year. I've talked to somebody. He said he would till this up and plow it once they come in and get out of here or whatever. But I was going to talk to him. Hopefully we can get a little bit of that for ourselves. We'll make a good little stockpile of something, split it up. I'd like to get some plastic put over it, keep it dry, let it season out. Now it's poplar. It's just going to burn up like a piece of cardboard. You know, it ain't nothing. Like get a little small load of coal. If we can get the truck fixed, we'll take and get us a little small load of coal, house coal, just to, you know, have it to, just in case, like, it's going to get cold, and the power was to go out. Now, it's going to get cold, obviously. It gets cold around here. You know, it can get 10, 20 below. It don't get negative 60, but it get 10, 20. I've seen it negative 40 once when I was a kid. You know, it did the same thing that it did around here. You could walk outside and listen to the treetops break out when they had an ice storm. Ice storms happen around here. So, like in the perfect world, we'd have a couple solar panels in there and, you know, a couple decent batteries, and we could sit there and whatever. Now, I do have something just back up in case we can keep, you know, our everyday image on social. If I don't have my image out there, then something's wrong. You know, whatever the circumstances, you know, you could look in the paper and make sure that, you know, we haven't expired, or, you know, you could look on the Leviza laser or whatever. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but, you know, I don't get into trouble, but anything could happen. You know what I mean? Get pulled over for a traffic ticket, whatever. You know, might be whatever. They hold on to people anymore. The way they talk anymore, and I don't want to get political, you know, once they can, you know, hold on to you, they don't have to let you out kind of thing. I don't know. So, that could be something pretty serious. I hope not. I haven't done nothing wrong too serious. You know, anything I've done, it's out there. And, you know, probably whatever. But we're coming to a season. I've got some more projects lined up. I've got a lot of stuff that I would love to just tackle. But, you know, low on money. If you want to send a donation or want some of these flowers, you know, I'll send out some seed pods. I don't know what's what. If you got a particular interest, you know, for a donation and we talk or whatever, you could get exactly what do you want off of one plant. You know, I like the way that one looks a lot better, blah, blah, blah. You tell me. I'm just kind of mixing them up. I've got like a jar full, peanut butter jar full already worked up. You know, I'll give you a pinch, 3-4 fingers, a pinch of seeds, you know, in an envelope and send them out for a donation. I think it's like, I buy forever stamps, so when I buy stamps, you know, it don't matter when I use one. If I got to put a stamp on it, it's forever. You know, a little bit more, but, you know, there was a couple times I had some from back when I was a kid. So, I mean, you know, I only paid, they were cheap, and it was like, you know, a little bit more later on. So, I'm just saying, forever stamps is what I buy. So, I don't want to have, you know, they're cheaper. Like, if I was doing them today and I had to, sure. But, you know, if I buy stamps, they're going to be forever stamps. But, guys, I hope everybody has a great weekend. We're just trying to pump out some few videos. Truck progress is slow. It's like getting dark at 7:30 now. So, you know, don't really want to turn on the lights. I'm not trying to run the electric bill up. You know, it went up a little bit. But we were doing a lot. You know, we had to do some jobs and get everything cleaned. You know, when you clean a lot, you're using stuff. It's different. We got a mower to fix. You know, that just needs a starter and a coil, and the motor runs. I've had it running. It runs good, too. Well, let's say you need to turn it over quite a bit and make sure, you know, it's going to stay loose if it rusts up. Obviously, you're going to have to take it apart. Those motors are simple. But we're just going to make like a tractor kind of thing with that push blade. I got a snow blade for it. So, maybe I could push my own snow off the driveway. Wouldn't that be cool, huh? I'd love to set up a camera. You know, if I don't have no money to buy no GoPro or nothing like that, but if we could set up a thing to where it had a terabyte's worth of storage and be able to, you know, whatever, we could do that. Guys, I don't want to bother you. Big tank's chilling. Rub my belly, love me. Ain't right, baby? Yeah, that baby. Oh, that baby. Yeah, he's a good boy. Ain't he? So, we're just trying to maintain. Hopefully do better for ourselves, and it's a better tomorrow for our children. I'd like to say thank everybody for tuning in as much as often as you do. Be sure to watch a few videos, leave some comments, say hey, hi, how you doing? I don't think that's, you know, too cobbled, or, you know, we uplift around here. Hopefully we don't talk down to each other.